To
well, I'm going to have to
job,
try and catch
Mike.
up before the bulletin tomorrow, haven't I?
All right, Mike,
Thanks very much.
22 minutes to 8. When it comes to defending your home and your family from an intruder, what would you consider to be reasonable force?
Well, it's an issue that's been thrown into sharp focus by the case of Munir Hussain. Now, he was jailed, and he was jailed for 30 months. That was reduced to a 12-month suspended sentence because law judge said he was the victim of extreme provocation.
Well, here to discuss this further is Bob Turney, who was once a burglar, then became a probation officer and is now a crime prevention consultant. Also, Jacqueline McKenzie-Johnson, who wants a change in the law. Good morning to you both. Now, Jackie, we should mention here that your son is, in fact, facing a charge of murder after a burglar in his home. So we cannot discuss details of that case, but we can discuss your campaign. What do you want to happen? What do you think should be changed in terms of the law?
Well, we want to call upon the government to clarify the law on reasonable force when occupants are faced with intruders in their home, and we're asking for the government to put more emphasis on the right of the occupants. I think there's a lot of confusion about reasonable force when faced with intruders in your home.
Yeah. Bob, you broke into people's homes and you were in and out of prison for how many years?
18 years.
18 years.
So I wasn't a particularly good burglar.
Right. But when you broke into people's homes, were they in?
No.
Were you ever confronted?
No, I never committed creeper burglaries. I just done when the
Creeper
houses were empty.
burglaries,
Yeah.
what's that? What's a creeper burglar?
That's when the occupants are in and you go in. It's called a creeper burglary.
Right. What do you consider to be reasonable if
Well, the
a burglar
law is
breaks into a
quite
house?
clear on this, really. You know, if I'm confronted in my lounge in the middle of the night by an intruder, I can take all the steps I need to make sure my family and my house, my property is secure. However, once they start leaving, the threat factor has gone down now. You know, they're leaving. So, like Mr. Hussain done, run after him and beat him silly with a cricket bat, is really in proportionate violence there.
Improportionate?
So yeah, well, he's actually committing an offence.
Yep. Although Lord Judge said that because he was provoked, he and his family were provoked to such an extent, that's the reason he was freed from the 30-month sentence.
Yeah, I've got all the sympathy for him for that, because it was a horrific crime, but actually to run down the road after him and then break a cricket bat over the guy's head is disproportionate. You know, it can't be, surely that can't be right.
Well, Jackie, do you think the law is clear enough and the interpretations are clear enough about what reasonable force is?
I don't think it is clear. We've recently had a launch of our campaign, the Safest Houses petition, and the residents of the area where I lived were very unclear. And I think the recent incident also with Myleene Class demonstrates that, you know, that the law is not clear about what a homeowner occupant
No, this is
can do.
when she felt threatened by some people who were about to, I think, were they going into her garden?
Yes, and they were looking through a window and she wielded a knife at them, didn't she? Yeah. And then she was criticised by the police and warned by the police for doing so.
I think that was an overzealous police officer. Normally, if you do that with a knife at a window, it frightens them off anyway. You know, I mean, most burglars are opportunity burglars. You know, they're not. They're just out to make a quick buck. And
the thing is, people don't act rationally in these are situations of enormous stress for people, aren't they? The most dramatic thing possible that could happen to them in their lives, and you have no idea how you're going to react when you do feel very, very threatened in your own home. And the law should surely take that into account.
And it does take that into account. You see, when you get cases like this, juries are very reluctant to convict. You know, they bend over backwards to acquit because, you know, but when they do convict, there is overwhelming evidence to say that it was disproportionate violence.
I think your comment about, you know, burglars are just in there to just, you know, make a quick buck and then get out. I mean, this is people's sanctuary, their homes, and it almost justifies the burglary in the sense that, you know, they're only coming in to take your belongings, and we're down, you know, it's to the, you know, we're at their mercy as to what harm they're going to do to people if they do confront people in the house. You talk about creeper burglars that enter homes when people are asleep, and that you never did that. You went when people were not at the home, but homeowners, occupants return to their home. That's their home, that's their sanctuary, that's where they live.
Absolutely. It is a terrible crime, burglary. It's an invasion of your your part of space.
A violation of your home.
Violation of your home. It feels like a rape. It feels like you've been violated. It's a very awful crime. That's why I spent the last 30 years working with victims of crime to try and put that right. But however, we've got to, as you say, Bill, it's a very highly charged situation. Supposing Mr. Hussein had got the wrong person, then we got tragedy, didn't we? I mean, when the national newspaper took it on themselves to name and shame paedophiles, we had a paediatrician's house bombed. So you've got to be very careful. We can't develop a lynch mob mentality.
I'm just interested though, Bob, when you said that sometimes it's justifiable, whether the boot has been on the other foot as far as you're concerned. You were a burglar for 18 years. Have you been burgled yourself? Do you know what it feels like?
I'm sitting on my computer. They come in and broke in. Yeah.
And what was your reaction then?
My reaction was like well. I'm a bit of a coward, but my reaction was to let them know somebody was in and they exit the building. Now, if I jumped in my car and ran them down, that's where it's over-proportionate. But they exit the building, so the threat factor has now come down. My family, my home is not being threatened anymore.
Right, Jackie?
Yeah, I mean, you said supposing they, Mr. Hussein got the wrong person when he chased them, but supposing that, you know, harm came to his family, and once somebody enters your home, you don't know what's going to happen. And for me, if somebody entered my home and they're not welcome, they're not invited, and they force their way in, as a reasonable person, I would be thinking that some harm's going to happen to me and my family. So, you know...
That is it, though, Jackie. If they're in your home presenting a threat to you, you're entitled to protect it. But it's when they leave...
Well, I still think...
And you run them down the road. I mean, surely no right-thinking person thinks that's right.
Well, surely no right-thinking person in the situation Mr. Hussein was in would behave in a rational way. It's, you know, a horrendous experience that him and his family was subjected to. So it's very difficult for us to, in the cold light of day, talk about what is really reasonable when you've got all these different emotions going through.
And I think there we will have to leave it. But thank you both very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And you've had thoughts on this yourselves, lots of them coming in, and we hope to get to some of them later on.
But the time now, just after 8:15. This is Breakfast from BBC News. Let's bring you up to date with our main stories this morning. Surgeons say the NHS is funding just 2% of the weight loss operations that are needed in England because of inconsistent hospital policies.
Rescuers in Haiti are still discovering survivors in the rubble more than a week after the earthquake, which killed up to 200,000 people.
And coming up a little later in the programme.
Thou will come no more, gentle Annie.
We're looking back at the life and career of the folk singer and songwriter Kate McGarrigle, who died earlier this week.
Time now for a look at the weather. It was very chilly and now it's getting very wet. Hello, Alex.
Good morning.